maybe I should announce it. Should I?
I'm Aaron.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm John.
On this episode of Battlecries Champagne, Peter and the Wolf and Spongebob Squarepants.
Let's get this show on the road. Let's get atomic vibe.
Yeah, well, we've got quite the contrast in this episode. Two very dramatic and passionate works of art.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the unifying theme here is that it's some voice work that Bowie did, and both were for the benefit of his children. You know, the first one obviously being Peter and the Wolf for his son in the late 70s, and then SpongeBob SquarePants in the late noughts for his daughter at the time. We'll see what we have to say about that. This is, again, part of our season of, ways to get into Bowie. I don't really know if anyone actually gets into Bowie this way, but I guess if you're a kid, you might be exposed to this stuff and not know it's Bowie, and then eventually become a fan and then be like, hey, whoa, that was...
I feel like so many of these SpongeBob episodes that had celebrity guests I didn't know until later. I feel like, if you listen to the Peter and the Wolf narration by Bowie, you're going to know it's Bowie because it's kind of in the title and he doesn't hide his voice in some way.
If you know who that is, right? I mean, you might listen to it at a young age where you've never heard of David Bowie, right? And then I guess it might be your first exposure to him. Is it going to make you want to go buy a record? Maybe not, but we're stretching the theme slightly, but
yes.
That's okay. It's our podcast.
Pretty abstract from his regular music career, I guess. So it'd be interesting who got drawn into listening to Bowie from either of these pieces, these fine works of art.
We clearly have some sides taken already. It seems like John is going to be very favorable, and it seems like Andrew is going to be very critical. So.
we strike a balance. How are you guys doing? Anything interesting going on?
We've been planning for the summer. We're planning to camp around the east coast of Canada, and so it's been a lot of early mornings on Parks Canada, Ontario provincial parks, all these sites trying to snag a campsite before it gets pulled out from underneath me. And so it's been, a stressful time.
You made it through, though? Have you got all the sites that you need?
Well, we're still going. Unfortunately, I have to wake up early on the daylight savings time.
Switch,
no.
To book a site, yeah.
Why would they do it on that day?
Andrew and I went through that anxiety. I went through it vicariously because I was at work and I could not be peeled away from that to go book some campsites, but Andrew booked us some campsites for a hike we're doing in BC in the fall. And how'd that go, Andrew?
We got most of what we wanted in the end, but it was stressful. It depends on where you're booking, but for us it was, I had to pick each site individually, and then there's a certain order that you want them in, right? Because you're doing the hike in one direction, and they have to be sequential. So you start, okay, I put one in my cart, put a second one in my cart, put a third one. Oh, now the fourth one's not available on that day. So if I want to shift the reservation back a day, I have to go back and delete all the previous ones and then rebook it. And then in the meantime, you can see them disappearing in front of your eyes, right? It's designed to be stressful.
And John, you, since the last time we spoke, turned 32. How is it going?
Oh boy, you just outed me as an old man now.
You're the grandfather of the group.
All my bones ache and my knees crack. No, it's good. It was a pretty quiet birthday for me for the most part. I actually got to go see one of my favorite electronic music artists of all time, probably my favorite. I don't know if any listener will recognize them. Feed Me from the UK. Randomly, they were coming here, playing at a small nightclub the night after my birthday, which was a weeknight. And they only came on stage at about midnight. So I got to bed very late. Somehow, I had that kind of weird energy to sail me through the next day, which was a Friday, and then I could just kind of pass out and die when I got home. And then I guess any interesting music you guys been listening to lately?
No,
just I like listening to white noise when I take my drives in the morning.
Well, I don't think I've listened to anything new or interesting in the last month. Like, I find like I have certain artists who I come back to when I'm just bored and I don't know what to listen to. Like,
Oh, it's fine. What are you doing? Are you on a kick of any sort of a classic artist?
I've been going through some of the Tragically Hip back catalog.
Nice.
That's one of my all time favorites.
Yeah, Aaron, a new and interesting music.
Yeah, I've actually been listening to some of early Blondie, and you know, I know Blondie's hits, but I haven't really listened to their albums. And the Parallel Lines album, which has like Heart of Glass and One Way or Another on it, super great album. Like, it just like those songs obviously are fantastic, but when you just listen to the album, like the other songs meet that standard. So it's a very, very, very good album. Yeah, and yourself?
I went to the Calgary Music Festival Block Heater, which is like a winter edition of the Calgary Folk Music Festival. And so I saw Joel Plaskett, which is one of my all-time Canadian indie artists. I'd highly recommend checking him out if you haven't heard of him. And it was introduced to some really cool new artists. Goldie Boutelier, I hadn't heard of. She was really cool.
Why don't we talk about where we are in these 2 years?
Yeah, so what we've decided to do for this one is look at the year that Peter and the Wolf was composed by Sergei Prokofiev in 1936, and then also look at the year that the Spongebob Squarepants episode came out in 2007. And we've designed a little game for each other where we're going to have a kind of a statement, and we're going to have to guess if that event happened in 1936 or in 2007.
Where are we now? Where are we now?
I think I found some pretty challenging options here. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, I don't know. Now I'm gonna eat my words.
Well, no,
You guys
take it
are
away.
gonna get it.
Take it away.
Me? Okay. So my first factoid is Windows Vista is released to. No. Okay. I know. I've actually got a pretty interesting one that you guys may or may not know. May 17th, the Russian Orthodox Church abroad and the Moscow Patriarchate reunite after 80 years of schism.
This feels like a post-Cold War thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna go 2007. Yeah.
You guys are correct. That is a 2007 fact. Good job. Yeah.
Okay. Quebec elects a new premier.
What?
I want to say. Oh yeah, I feel like it was 36. I feel that's when Maurice Duplessis was. But I mean, 2007 could also have been when Charest was elected, though. Oh, I'm gonna go with both. I feel this is a trick question. I think it's both years. It was an election.
John, do you have a guess or?
I'm gonna go 1936.
You are correct.
Let's
so it was
Hey.
Maurice Duplessis
Okay.
who was first elected in 1936.
Oh, well, you got that,
there
yeah.
was a Quebec election in 2007, and Jean Charest was re-elected.
Oh, you said new.
New premier.
Oh, whoa! That was a really tricky one. That was good. Jeez. All right.
Okay, let's see if I can stump you with this one.
Yeah,
here.
Aaron, come on.
A man in North Bay, Ontario, grows a cabbage that looks like a pineapple.
That has got to be 1936 news. That's 1936 news, I feel like.
You don't think that's an internet
The most
phenomenon?
I was gonna say that feels like an internet thing to me. Yeah.
That's true. That's
Like-
a good. I'm gonna stick with 1936.
That's off BuzzFeed for sure, right? I'm going 2007.
It's 1936, folks.
Oh.
Hey! So on November 2nd, the BBC launches the world's first regular television service in high definition.
Well, 36 for sure. No, that's a 2007
Yeah, that's gotta
fact.
go 7.
You guys are wrong. That's 1936. According to
High
contemporary standards, they launched the
Okay.
first high Yeah.
What
I don't
counted
know.
as high definition in 1936.
Yeah, like
62 pixels.
yeah,
I knew that one might get you. That I'm excited
Oh, you
about that.
sneaky bastard.
yeah, that's cheeky.
Okay. A treaty formalizes the border between Latvia and Russia.
That's a 2007 fact, because it would have been the USSR, right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay, the last one I have for you is Canadians visiting the U.S. now have to have a passport.
That's 2000. Ooh.
I was thinking like after 9/11 they tightened things up, because for a long time you could cross the Canada-US border without a passport.
That's right.
2007.
Yep, it's 2007, folks. Okay, so obviously we're going to be talking about Peter and the Wolf now. For Bowie fans, Peter and the Wolf was recorded a year into Bowie's return to his European homeland as he sobered himself up after the excesses of his time in America. For classical music aficionados, Peter and the Wolf is a piece composed shortly after Sergei Prokofiev's return to his Russian homeland and his increasingly sober musical approach following his more ornate Parisian works. So there are some parallels to be drawn here. Let's first focus on Prokofiev's story before getting into Bowie's. Sergei Prokofiev was born in 1891 in the village of Santsovska, which is, as of recording in February 2026, part of the Donbass region of Ukraine. We'll see if that holds. Prokofiev, however, was no Mozart, as it wouldn't be until he was 8 years old that he composed his first marches, polkas, waltzes, and rondos.
What? That's disappointing.
I know, a little,
Slacker.
yeah. Prokofiev's first musical influence was his mother, Maria, who had played piano up to 6 hours a day while pregnant with him, which I think is maybe even more impressive than the composing at 8 years
I was
old.
thinking about that. That's a lot of work for being pregnant.
Prokofiev studied music at the St. Petersburg Conservatory and graduated in June 1914, surely the most historically significant event in that month.
There was this murder, I don't know, in the Balkans somewhere. Not a big deal. Nothing ever became of it.
No.
With the onset of the Bolshevik Revolution a few years later, Prokofiev left his homeland and settled in Paris. Though he wasn't living in the newly formed USSR, that didn't stop Soviet critics from keeping tabs on Prokofiev. Their words were persuasive enough for him to resolve in the mid-1920s to create music that was more tuneful, uplifting, and simple in order to appeal to the masses. Finally, in 1936, Soviet officials were able to convince Prokofiev to return to the USSR for good, leading him to believe that he could play a role in influencing government cultural policy. How prestigious. Unfortunately, by 1936, General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, felt he had a firm grasp on the country's economy and education and was ready to branch out into cultural policy himself. People will have strong opinions about celebrities getting involved in politics, but it's worse in some ways when politicians get involved in the arts. This is a nice little segue where I'd like to ask you to what you think of the artwork of George W. Bush.
Wait, sorry, he had artwork?
Well, he's a painter.
Please.
Yes.
I need to look this up.
You know what? They aren't bad, actually. Like, I mean, you know, they're not going to hang in the Louvre, but, I mean, they're better than I would be able to do, so fair play.
We got a first reaction right here.
Oh, whoa. He paints portraits. Yeah. I mean...
It seems like it's an acquired taste. Maybe you gotta sit with it for a bit.
But I have to agree with you. When politicians get involved in the arts, it can be concerning, for sure.
But actually, up until this point, Soviet art had actually been fairly experimental, with cinema auteurs like Sergei Eisenstein still being highly regarded today. But that was all about to change, with censorship and correction becoming common experiences for Soviet artists, their true talents being overshadowed by Stalin's doctrine. In fact, Stalin even had the audacity to die on the same day as Prokofiev, overshadowing him one last time.
What a prick.
How dare he?
I think it's fair to say Joe Stalin, not a friend of the podcast.
Yeah. He's not going to be coming on anytime soon.
I think I saw him drop some pretty nasty comments the last episode, so certainly not a friend.
Anyway, one of Prokofiev's most enduring pieces is the one he composed in one single week in April 1936, Peter and the Wolf. It was commissioned by the Soviet government to develop a musical taste in children. The government was keen to cultivate these young communists in the right ideals that would set their country up for permanent success. There are two interesting things about the story of the piece, developed in collaboration with Natalia Sats, director of the Moscow Children's Theatre. Firstly, some inspiration comes from folkloric tales of wood goblins who could take the form of wolves to steal babies and traumatize them before returning them to their families. Is it just me, or does that kind of sound a little familiar?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, There's an eerie echo of the last episode there, maybe, but
Bowie likes getting involved with goblin tales, perhaps.
The second interesting thing about the story is that it deals with a headstrong Soviet Boy Scout, Pioneer Peter, who defies his grandfather. Perhaps this moral connected with a young Mikhail Gorbachev who would go on to defy his country's forefathers and tear down that wall. The power of art.
we were kind of joking earlier before we started recording that if this was a German story, it would have ended with Peter being eaten by the wolf, and then it would be like a parable about how you should listen to your grandfather, right? So, yeah, it reflects the, I guess, skepticism of a bunch of young revolutionaries running a country towards maybe the older generation that was pre-communist, right? So it's interesting to think about how it sits within its time. Whereas, the irony being the Soviets become the old guard, and by 1978, like as you alluded to, now they need to be swept out, and Gorbachev needs to come in, and all the people running the country are 180 years old by the time Bowie records his interpretation. But those guys used to be young, and this is the time period when they were young, right? So, maybe I'm getting slightly off topic.
No,
it's interesting.
Very good. Prokofiev played his piano score to some school children before fully orchestrating his composition, as he valued the opinions and imaginations of children. According to lore, they loved Prokofiev's music and demanded to hear encores of the Procession to the Zoo portion. So the narrative text was written by Prokofiev and poet Nina Sakonskaya with the intent of helping children understand the musical side of the composition and not to subjugate it or to distract from it. Peter and the Wolf received its Soviet premiere at the Moscow Philharmonic on May 2nd, 1936, and was decidedly a dud, due to an inexperienced narrator filling in for Natalia Satz. The second premiere, if you'll forgive the oxymoron, at the Central Children's Theatre, with Satz back in the role as narrator, was a smash, however. This goes to show you how much of a deal breaker the narrator is to this piece.
No kidding. We'll come to see that.
2 years later, in February of 1938, Prokofiev conducted the orchestra in Boston, Massachusetts for the American premiere of Peter and the Wolf. During this American tour, Prokofiev met with Walt Disney and played him the score. To butter up old Walt, Prokofiev credited Donald Duck's premiere in the cartoon short The Wise Little Hen with inspiring his Peter and the Wolf.
Is that true? I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm happy anytime Donald Duck can make his way onto the show. So
He is a friend of the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, actually, didn't we get a message in from Donald Duck saying how much he loves the show?
no. I gotta practice. I used to be able to do some words.
I know. I remember you did a fantastic Donald Duck. Oh man. No, that's fair. I'm sure you're out of practice.
Yeah. During this meeting with Walt Disney, Prokofiev agreed to license the music rights of Peter and the Wolf to a future Disney cartoon. The Disney version eventually appeared as part of 1946's package film, Make Mine Music, with narration provided by Sterling Holloway, the future voice of Winnie the Pooh. This Disney version was the introduction of Peter and the Wolf into the North American mainstream. Over 400 recordings would follow, one being by Sean Connery and another by David Bowie.
That's incredible. 400 recordings post the Disney edition of it.
It's an amazing variety of people who've done interpretations like this.
You got some names?
Yeah. So Alec Guinness did a version of this. Rob Reiner did a version of this. Weird Al Yankovic did a version of this, and literally probably 100 more.
Yeah.
There's a really long list on Wikipedia if you want to.
I wish I had the forethought to actually go listen to some other ones well known to kind of contrast the Bowie version. Unfortunately, I did not. I want to hear Weird Al Yankovic's version. That must be wild. Yeah.
I'm sure it was. I do wonder, and I wasn't able to find this out, whether Prokofiev ever saw the Disney version of this. Because, of course, by 1946, he's behind the Iron Curtain. The Cold War is getting going. Some Western stuff did make it into the Soviet Union in kind of bootleg form or whatever, but I would be very curious to know what he thought of it.
I wasn't able to find anything that had his recorded thoughts on that, but
before we move on to Bowie, the other kind of sad, in a way, sort of coda to this is Satz by the time the American premiere happens in 1938, is actually being shipped off to the Gulag.
Oh.
So she did not have a happy 1930s and 40s, but after Stalin's death, she was rehabilitated, and she actually died in 1992. So she lived longer than the country that treated her so badly, which there's a certain, poetic justice to that, I suppose.
That inspires me a little bit to go read some of her poetry post-release, because, trauma and hard times create fantastic art.
Yeah, as the paintings of George W. Bush show us.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Oh, please, listeners, go look up those paintings. You will not be disappointed.
On the Bowie's version, the Philadelphia Orchestra provides the musical accompaniment, conducted by Eugene Ormandy. Their part was recorded in October of 1975, with RCA taking 2 years to find an appropriate narrator. But it was David Bowie who finally accepted the part. The gig was offered to Bowie by the head of RCA's classical label, Ralph Mace, who had performed the Moog synthesizer on the Man Who Sold the World album and on the version of Memory of a Free Festival featured in this podcast's intro. Bowie was apparently interested in doing this work as a Christmas gift to his 5-year-old son, who he was in the process of gaining full custody of. Author Chris O'Leary speculates that Bowie may have also been doing this as an olive branch to RCA after forcing them to release the challenging Low and Heroes albums that year, not to mention his collaborations with Iggy Pop.
Well, yeah, I guess he had multiple motivations. You want to create something for your kids. Many artists do when they have children who are growing up. I think that was one of the motivations why Ice Cube did Are We There Yet? Back in the day. But and then troublesome or challenging relationship with RCA. Who knows? I guess we'll never know. It's speculation, really.
Here is a story.
What are you looking at here?
This is the Alec Guinness version.
Is that Alec Guinness or is that the Colonel?
I don't know who that's supposed to be.
I think there's a version recorded by Colonel Sanders that Andrew's pulled up here. Where the wolf is turned into Kentucky Fried Chicken at the end of the thing.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, he looks like Colonel Sanders. What is that album cover?
Anyway.
Yeah, let's get back to how Bowie was involved. Bowie got the gig.
In mid-November 1977, Bowie showed up to RCA's New York studios in a gray shirt, black corduroys, and green clogs to tape his vocals over the orchestra. The album was released in May 1978, backed with Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra.
I don't use this expression very often, but that outfit sounds fire. That just sounds so cool. Green clogs is such an interesting choice, but sounds chic, man.
Yeah.
I could see someone wearing that today, in an artistic,
Skipping ahead now to his next voice work project that Bowie did for one of his kids, his role as Lord Royal Highness in the Spongebob Squarepants episode Atlantis Squarepants, which aired on November 12th, 2007. SpongeBob creator Steven Hillenburg was born in 1961 and grew up in California, though he was also no Mozart in that he didn't pursue animation seriously until his late 20s. He actually got his first degree in natural resource planning with a specialization in marine resources. Hillenburg had been fascinated by aquatic life from a very young age. Unlike Prokofiev, Hillenburg never lived in exile and never was approached by his government to produce propaganda. The two men did share a fondness for the imagination of children, however, which, as of recording in February 2026, still exists. But we'll see what a few more years of iPads and AI do to developing brains.
Do you know so there's an American and a Soviet guy sitting on a plane between Moscow and Washington, and the American says to the Soviet guy, you know what I admire about your country is your propaganda is so effective, it's so well made. And the Soviet guy says, well, thank you, but I also admire that about the United States. And the American guy says, what do you mean? We don't have propaganda. And the Soviet guy says, well, exactly.
Yeah.
After working for Nickelodeon for the better part of the 1990s, Hillenburg and artists Derek Dryman and Nick Jennings pitched the idea of SpongeBob SquarePants to the network, The show premiered on July 17th, 1999, and was an instant hit. SpongeBob dominated TV ratings for its first 8 seasons, and I'm pleased to announce that, like The Simpsons, it is still airing new episodes today. Let's hope those shows never give up.
Don't set me off. I've rambled enough today.
Though Hillenberg wasn't keen on celebrity guest cameos, when the creative team was planning the Atlantis Squarepants episode, set to be the show's first TV movie, as the episode runs 42 minutes, Bowie's name was floated around for the role of Lord Royal Highness. Bowie was a regular viewer of the show, a shared passion between him and his 6-year-old daughter Lexi, and was delighted to be cast. Here is how he shared the news on his website.
At last, I've hit the holy grail of animation gigs. We, the family, are thrilled. Nothing else need happen this year. Well, this week anyway.
Honestly, off the top of my head, I can't think of a more sunny reaction Bowie gave to a project that he was currently involved in. If you can think of something, let us know in the comments on YouTube, or send us an email, Battlecries at outlook.com, with some a more enthusiastic example. And also, if you know anything that we messed up about Prokofiev or other versions of Peter and the Wolf, let us know any of those things.
Nothing casts as wide a net as a passionate audience, always looking for feedback.
Speaking of passion, Bowie's giddiness extended to the design of the character, which featured 2 different colored eyes in homage to Bowie's signature features. Bowie remarked,
"I wish I had dreamt up that look back in 1974.
Though most of SpongeBob voice actors recorded live together at Nickelodeon's Burbank Studios, Bowie recorded his vocal remotely at Looking Glass Studios in October 2006. He arrived with a few different voice options for producer Paul Tibbett, always the professional. It has not been recorded what clothing Bowie was wearing that day. This would, however, be the last time David Bowie recorded at Looking Glass Studios, the studio that had given birth to such albums as Earthling and Reality, and midwifed projects like Toy and Hours. Before we get into our own review of these 2 projects, by that meaning Peter and the Wolf and Spongebob Squarepants, let's hear what the critics had to say. Of Peter and the Wolf, Reading Eagle wrote,
Bowie plays it straight. It's a new and intriguing side of the many Bowie personalities.
The Michigan Daily concurred.
Bowie makes a charming storyteller. His participation might even get rock audiences listening to classical music.
The Pittsburgh Press, continuing its moniker's penchant for alliterations with the letter P, professed,
He's quite serious, speaks in an extremely proper, clipped British accent, the perfect example of a rock star being proper in a proper setting. An excellent job.
The public was also into it, as Bowie's recording peaked at number 136 on the US Billboard 200 upon release and stayed in the charts for 8 weeks, which is 2 weeks longer than Earthling and 4 weeks longer than Reality.
That's impressive.
Yeah, especially for a spoken word album. The only naysayer in the bunch is biographer Peter Doggett, who wrote,
Bowie's narration teeters on patronizing the audience.
Speaking of patronizing the audience.
On patronizing the audience.
How very goes.
Yeah, well, we know Mr. Doggett's not coming on the show for sure after that impersonation.
Add him to the list with Joseph Stalin and who was the other guy?
I think George W. Bush.
Well, they're banned from the show.
Anyway, as for Atlantis Squarepants, the only meaningful critical appraisal I found was the episode's ranking on the SpongeBob fandom wiki, which placed it at 438 of 604 episodes, designating the episode mediocre. So, with that, let's hear what you guys have to say about Bowie's voice work. I guess let's start with Peter and the Wolf.
Let's face the music and dance.
I thought his work on this was quite good, actually. It is very, clipped is right. He speaks very properly. It's very kind of BBC English. I like the way he varies his voice a little bit for each of the characters without it feeling exaggerated. He pauses in the right places. He speaks at the right speed. Yeah, I think it's a good performance. It feels very soothing, very soft, very kind of buttery voice. And I certainly do see how this piece would get someone into classical music who hadn't listened to it a lot before. Like, it introduces a lot of the key instruments, kind of shows off what they can do, the range, how the sounds vary between them, how expressive the instruments can be. Like, you can almost see it happening in your mind just by listening to the music. The shifts between major and minor key, I don't know, really convey the image. So it's great at showing off kind of what a symphony can do. Bowie's work here, I think, is very, very good. I mean, I didn't know what to expect going into this, but I was pleasantly surprised by it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it just sounds like effortlessly natural. I would expect nothing less from Bowie, and I didn't going into listening to this, but he made an excellent narrator for this. Yeah, obviously he has a lot of range in his voice and the impressions he can do. It seems like a pretty natural fit for how he can flip between, speaking as the cat or the bird or the grandpa even, which impressed me. That one seemed like pretty distinct from all the others, whereas like on my first listen through, I could tell all the other impressions, all the other characters were Bowie, and he did make them distinct. But the grandpa, at first, I didn't even think it was Bowie when I heard that. I was like, this is an impressively abstract version of his voice.
It's a dangerous place. If a wolf should come out of the forest, then what would you do?
Interesting case. So I kind of agree with both of you, but I also kind of disagree with both of you, in the sense that, Bowie was someone who often would talk about how, well, I guess in the 70s, he would talk about how good of a mimic he was, how he was easily able to assimilate someone's accent just upon speaking to them very quickly. There's also this fantastic outtake of from the Absolute Beginners sessions where he's doing this like this couple of lines in different famous musicians like voices, and he's spot on. Like he does an excellent job of like mimicking these voices. And so I feel like, considering that he does have this range, I feel like he doesn't fully exploit it in this recording. And I would agree that the grandfather's voice is very distinct. I personally think the cat voice is the best one.
Oh yeah, I love the cat voice.
But
yeah,
some of it, like I feel like some of the other voices are pretty very, very similar to his own voice, and I personally would have liked if he leaned more into his ability to like vary them up a little bit. And also, I'm just going to play some samples here where he kind of actually drops his voice in certain points. So here is how Peter sounds at one point in the story.
Fly down and circle round the wolf's head. Only take care that he doesn't catch you.
And then here's how Peter sounds at another point in the story.
Don't shoot. Birdie and I have already caught the wolf. Now help us take him to the zoo.
It's a subtle difference, I think.
And then here's how the bird sounds at one point in the story.
What kind of bird are you if you can't fly?
Versus another part of the story.
My, what brave fellows we are. Peter and I. Look what we have caught.
Yeah, see, like it's not high anymore. Like before, it's like a kind of a squeaky little voice.
No, drops a bit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have to agree with you, and I'm glad you pointed that out because it's not the most consistent. However, on my listens through, I didn't really pick that out myself. Maybe I was focused so much on the bird says, Peter says, and that set the thing for me in my mind, and the actual tone and kind of impressions didn't matter as much to me. It makes me wonder just how many takes he did and how much care he put into these impressions, because it seems like, not that he wouldn't have cared, but he wasn't particularly careful with the impression of each of these characters.
The one thing I will say is I think that like just when he's doing the narration, though, I think he does a really good job. I feel like the way he's using words does help you create that mental image in your head, and I'll play some examples of that here as well.
But grandfather took Peter by the hand, locked the gate, and led him home. Meanwhile, Peter made a lasso, and carefully letting it down, and down, and down.
Another criticism I would have is the character of the wolf. Like the French horns really sell the menace of that character, but I feel like when Bowie's talking about the wolf, it's kind of like the same issue we had with Labyrinth, where I just feel like, again, if you think of Bowie's own musical output, like things like Diamond Dogs, Outside. Like he is able to do horror and like terrify you, but I feel like in his acting stuff, he doesn't sell the villain enough, you know.
Oh, I mean, okay, so both Labyrinth and Peter and the Wolf are pieces arguably for children.
Mm-hmm.
So is he maybe holding back a bit because of that? He doesn't want to terrify children, which, you know, you can debate whether or not that's a proper stance or not. But, you know, because I think in both cases the material is light enough that he could have probably anteed up the impressions and made it a little bit spookier. And thus maybe it would be more memorable.
I mean, like, I didn't find the character of the wolf all that scary.
No.
But I don't know whether that's, I mean, because of Bowie or if that's just the way it's written.
Okay, yeah.
Like, there's no... Peter's not ever in danger himself. You feel bad for the duck, but...
Yeah, well, I was going to say the most scary part of it for me is when the duck is being chased down. Like, I actually, when I was listening to it and trying to be invested in it, I was like a little bit, you know, a little bit worried, a little bit anxious about that part. But other than that, I mean, it just seems kind of like a Looney Tunes cartoon where Peter's like got the wolf and the wolf is jumping around and yada yada.
You know, we've talked about the instruments and how good they are, and I completely agree with that.
Yeah, the Philadelphia Orchestra did a fantastic job with this.
Something that might help explain why I'm not super impressed with Bowie's narration here is just because I think you know, Prokofiev did want the narration to take second place to the instrumental, right? And so I think naturally there's just, as Andrew pointed out, there just might not be enough meat to really use.
Like some of the lines, and I don't know if this is a translation thing, but, you know, suddenly a duck appeared.
Yeah.
You know, like some of it's a bit like, I don't know how much you can do with that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not the most descriptive language. So I think you're right, like probably because the music is doing the description.
My final question for you guys on this topic of Peter and the Wolf, you know, when they conclude with the duck being still alive in the stomach, to me that's a cliffhanger. What do you think happens to this duck?
To me, I guess for me it felt more anticlimactic than a cliffhanger, because I know there is no continuation of this story, and I was like, justice for the duck, man. Like what happened? So the duck is now in the zoo as well?
The duck gets pooped out and is now living in this cage with the wolf? Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a fair question. They kind of did leave that one hanging, didn't they?
I just want to ask, do you guys think Bowie should have narrated this in a Russian accent?
I think it would have been great. Yeah, I would be down for that.
Can you do an impression of Bowie doing a Russian accent?
No, I can't.
That sounded like.
I can't do Donald Duck anymore, so I definitely can't do that.
It's bad.
Actually, I'm going to work up to doing Donald Duck, doing David Bowie, doing a Russian accent. That's going to be my impression.
Oh no, not me. I never sold the world. I'm not even sure that's Russian. What was your favorite segment or track from the Bowie version, I suppose?
Well, thankfully, I have all my music rated here, so I can.
There you go. You still rate your music? You put stars on things? Oh man, I did that in iTunes a lot back in the day.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's some contenders here. Well, it seems like I preferred the earlier stuff.
Okay.
The Wolf Stalks the Bird and the Cat, rated 4 stars. Grandfather, rated 4 stars. Dialogue with the Bird, Attack of the Cat, 4 stars. The Bird, 4 stars. Story Begins, 4 stars. And that introduction, 4 stars. I mean, that kettle drum break, ooh boy, that slaps.
And Andrew, did you have a kind of favored segment?
I don't know if there's a single part that stands out. I mean, I thought the argument between the bird and the duck was kind of cute. It was entertaining. For sure, the wolf chasing down the duck is kind of the most gripping part of the piece. I like the oboe grandfather. Like the portrayal, like I don't know, I felt like I really...
It's very slow and deliberate movements it's portraying or whatever.
That one always... that stuck out to me, and it stuck out to me when it came back in the end, in the closing segment there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's one that's like head and shoulders above all the others.
Okay, I'm gonna settle it for us because I think we all touched on it. I think track 4, the duck dialogue with the bird and Attack of the Cat, is like It's all pretty great. It all blurs together, but I think that's like my kind of highlight of all the tracks, because Bowie switches between 3 different impressions. Whether or not they're good is up for debate, but he switches between 3 different impressions. The cat is, I believe, first voiced in that one, which I would agree with Aaron. That's my favorite impression of the whole lot. And also, I love how that it just immediately goes off with beef between the bird and duck, where they're just like literally chirping at each other about like, well, yeah, what kind of bird are you if you can't fly? Well, what kind of bird are you if you can't swim? And it's just, I thought that was like a funny little bit of humor.
Also, what's with Russian ducks that they can't fly?
Yeah, wait, what?
Okay, well, let's move on to SpongeBob SquarePants then.
Please.
Should we start off with Andrew? He's been chomping at the bit here to
dying
trash
to get my comments in. Man, this did not need to be 40 minutes. Like I expected this to be like 22 or whatever your typical SpongeBob episode sort of is or was, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna make a TV movie version. Fine, we'll make a like double length episode, but we actually don't have enough material, so we're gonna add all this filler where like Patchy's having this completely separate adventure and he's like stuck in traffic, and then there's this weird thing where these aliens shrink the town, and it's just like, this is so boring, so I just ended up skipping all of that stuff.
Okay, so maybe you guys can help me out here. When I was watching this, I did not remember Patchy at all. Was he like a regular character? Like
yes, he's like in the intro. He doesn't often show up in the episodes, but sometimes, yeah.
I think he appears like in the longer I don't think he's not in all of them.
Okay,
but
that's why I don't remember it.
He's like the host of some of the longer episodes or whatever. It's just odd. I don't know. I mean, as far as Bowie's work on this, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, he's good at doing kind of caricatures. Like the Peter and the Wolf stuff didn't feel like a caricature to me. His work on SpongeBob, I mean, Lord Royal Highness kind of sounds like a caricature of how you'd expect a British aristocrat to speak. Like, it sounds like he's doing an impression of the Queen or something, right? But it felt a bit exaggerated and a bit cartoony. I mean, maybe you could argue that's not it literally is a cartoon, so maybe that's okay. But yeah, I wasn't as impressed by it. Like, it wasn't a bad performance. He had a few good lines in there. Art is what happens when you dare to dream, or whatever it was.
I personally really like his laugh.
Yes,
the laugh is
yes.
right. That's true.
He's aha. Oh, it's so cringy, but in like a good way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think the sort of central plot of them touring Atlantis was kind of fun, and they each find something there that speaks to the, even Plankton, and then of course they all mess it up in kind of a typical SpongeBob way. But this would have been a great like standard episode for a feature length thing. It fell a little short for me. Would you agree with the what was it, the SpongeBob wiki that had him as 438 out of 604?
I mean, I haven't watched all of them, but I would say probably yeah. I remember SpongeBob quite fondly. It was one of my favorite shows growing up, and there are some really fantastic episodes. This is clearly not one of them.
Okay, well, I'll trust your judgment.
I have to say, I felt like Squidward a little bit watching this. Like, like he's always so frustrated. He's like, what am I watching?
Yeah, okay, I'd agree. It's not the best episode of SpongeBob. It's been a long time since I've watched SpongeBob, but I thought there was still some funny parts. I think Bowie's voice work in this is a lot better than his Peter and the Wolf thing. I think he just matches the energy of the show very well. I also think that when he gets mad at Patrick for, destroying the
Bursting
true
the
bubble.
bubble. Yeah.
I feel like he actually sounds angry, and there's a little bit of menace there for once. So he actually, there's a little more range here. Obviously the show has a few songs in it. It's a shame that I don't know if Bowie was offered a song and he declined to do one, but that would have been kind of a missed opportunity. It'd be kind of fun to hear him do a song in this character voice.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I actually thought the kind of the traffic stuff was kind of funny. With Patchy, it just kind of funny. Just the low budget stuff with the Patchy. Like
It's very low.
Even when he's complaining about like the mayo on the sandwich, it literally does not look like there's mayo on that, and it's like that would cost you $0 to add a slab of mayo onto the sandwich. Like there's no reason why that sandwich should look dry. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so Andrew, you would take Peter and the Wolf over SpongeBob.
They're so hard to compare. Like they're completely different things.
Okay,
right?
just in terms of Bowie's vocal work.
I probably would have said that coming into the episode. I think some of your two guys' points have made me maybe reflect on that a little bit more. I think maybe because I didn't like this episode of SpongeBob, that maybe colored my perspective on his acting a little bit in this piece. But yeah, my first reaction when I watched it was that I wasn't having a good time. But yeah, that might not be Bowie's fault.
John, what about yourself?
I think Bowie did a pretty good impression in this SpongeBob episode, and perhaps more consistent than the impressions he did in the Peter and the Wolf rendition. But regardless, as accepting the full art piece and everything that went into it beyond Bowie, I'm 100% taking the Peter and the Wolf over this SpongeBob episode. I would gladly go back and listen to the Peter and the Wolf version by David Bowie. Then I would go back and watch this kind of unloved SpongeBob episode.
Yeah, that's I think that's true for me as well. I guess the last thing I'll say in defense of Bowie's narration on Peter and the Wolf is it's probably harder to keep the characters straight when you're doing 6 of them or whatever than if it's just one. So I think that probably does weigh in the balance. But
yes,
yeah, in terms of staying power, like I mean, this SpongeBob episode, does anybody like? I was gonna say 50 years from now, which we're gonna be listening to more, like Peter and the Wolf or the Sponge. But even today, like I don't know which has more views on YouTube, but I mean, it's probably not this episode of SpongeBob, I would guess.
Okay, let's quickly do our visual segment. Let's look at some album artwork for Peter and the Wolf.
Your record sleeves are better than your songs.
This album has been reissued 4 different times with 4 different sleeves. The first one we're looking at is the original 1978 album. This has a photograph of David Bowie taken by Tom Kelly from the Station to Station era with a hand-drawn wolf in the background.
Like the wolf has a slightly goofy expression.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks a little funky, like a taxidermy gone wrong. Nope. Chuck Testa for that deep cut reference for anybody who wants to enjoy that.
I mean, it's a good image. I like the little eyebrow arch.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking very intense. Like, as far as album covers go, it's good.
I feel like if I were to restructure this album artwork, I would like maybe have Bowie less of a prominent thing, although I know that's maybe a marketing ploy, and more like at scale with the wolf, and him being kind of a Peter figure to the wolf as the big bad. And
interesting.
I don't know, there's I feel like there's good content here, and it could have been played with more in my mind, but yeah, it looks fine. Sure.
Okay, let's move on to the next issue, and now this one has kind of the opposite of what John suggested. Instead of Bowie being Peter or Bowie's now the wolf, it looks like.
That doesn't really look like Bowie even to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the angle.
Yeah, it is. This one definitely is a little creepy.
Oh, it's like a mask of Bowie on the face of the wolf.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay.
I'm getting like Red Riding Hood vibes from that, you know?
Yeah, that is interesting, actually. That makes me appreciate this cover more, because I'm not a huge fan of it, but now that you say that wolf is wearing the mask, that is kind of a cool...
Yeah, it is. That's a good observation.
Also, what is the 60 plus? You have to be over 60 years old to listen to this? I thought this was for children.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is, because this is the 1992 issue of the album. So maybe RCA had been around for 60 years at this point. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Let's move on to this issue from 1994. Now, this is definitely downplays the Bowie aspect. I actually don't know who we have on the cover here. Is that
meant to be Prokofiev?
It must be.
Or is that Ormandy? I don't know.
It's so strange if neither of them, who the heck is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what they're trying to do here.
Also, now we have 60 plus, basic 143. I don't know what any of that means. I don't have the context.
Yeah, we're just continually adding numbers.
Yeah,
to
it's
this,
just like
this
2 years have gone by. They've decided to do another reissue for some reason. And the artwork is very confusing on this one. I would pass this by on a shelf for sure.
If you find some pictures of him older in life, he is kind of wearing those round glasses, and he does sort of have that hairline, so I'm guessing that's meant to be.
I mean,
Prokofiev.
rightfully, I guess, for him to figure on the cover, his work more than Bowie's, so that's fair.
But I agree, it's a bit bland, I
Yes,
would say.
yeah.
Oh boy, well, if you think that one's bland, wait till you see the next one.
Okay, let's move ahead. This here is the 2013 issue, where again we have an image of Bowie from the Station to Station era.
I thought it was 2004.
Oh, sorry. No, you're right. 2004. My apologies. Yeah.
Well, this does look, this looks like it'd be fine as a David Bowie album cover, I guess, but I would expect, like, if I just quickly grab this,
Yeah.
I don't know, I would expect, like a Bowie album.
Yes. You'd be a little disappointed when
I
you...
would be a little
yeah.
disappointed by that, yeah.
It doesn't invoke any semblance of the Peter and the Wolf story for me.
No.
So, I mean, again, we're highlighting that Bowie's the big star power behind this recording, but like, unless it said Peter and the Wolf, I would have no idea even what kind of recording it is.
Yeah, honestly, to me, this looks like a bootleg CD cover. Like, it really
Yeah.
doesn't, it's... And again, it's just so weird that in both this one and the original one, we're choosing an image of Bowie from 76 when he recorded this in 77 and it didn't come out to 78. Like, you would think you would choose a contemporary picture.
Strange choices. Pretty much all of them. I mean, I think the first one for me is the best out of all of them, but,
I agree, yeah. But even though it's not that great, but you know what? I don't know. You could, with the wolf mask, you kind of talked me into the 1992 one, so that's the one I'm going to go with.
All right. Yeah, sure. I mean, that one definitely is, to me, the most creative. I think I still like the original a bit more, but,
I mean, and keeping in mind it is like a children's material, I think I would go for the original one, yeah.
Okay, yes, you're right.
Can we briefly touch on the character design of Bowie's character, Your Royal Highness? I think it is one of the wackier characters I've seen designed for SpongeBob. I find it off-putting. I don't really like it. It's just weird. I like how they have the multicolored eyes. I think the lipstick is kind of a funny touch. The hair sticking out the sides of the brain bucket or whatever's going on is like strange to me.
See, to me, that kind of recalls like the Ziggy kind of mullet, or the Aladdin Sane mullet. So I kind of like that.
Okay.
That long hair.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
The legs are way too skinny relative to the body. That bothers me a little bit.
That's
and then
fair,
the green,
that's fair.
like the green thing, is that meant to be like, are those like his pants? Like,
Yeah,
is he wearing
I
like
think
this
it's like a Speedo.
huge
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Speedo that's pulled up to his nipples? Like, what exactly is going on there? I don't love the clothing choices that they've made. The thing about the eyes being two different colors, that is a nice touch though for Bowie. I agree.
I like his nose. I feel like the nose really suits the character's voice,
Now, have you noticed how the nose sometimes is pointing up and sometimes is pointing down, depending on the point in the scene where you're at? I don't know if they're using that to convey expression or
Yeah, that's
what.
true. I hadn't noticed that. All right, well, I guess we will see you next episode when we finally are going to get back to actual David Bowie music albums. We're going to be covering the 2002 album Heathen. I'm very excited about that, as it's definitely one of my top 3 Bowie albums. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys and from joining you, the listener, then.
Yeah, to really, build up for that episode, I'm just going to try and go commit every sin I can. That won't land me in jail, so I really feel like a heathen before I go into it.
Well, we will ask for a report on that at the beginning of the next episode, definitely.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I can't wait. But until then, come on.
Don't forget to keep your hat warm.
Try to stifle art. Oh boy.